Okay, guys, people messaged me to go on Discord, but there was nobody there. So the talk continues. And I'm still waiting on Discord. This is on next level, like multitasking right now. I guess what I'm trying to say, or where I can take this, is it's just the idea of flight and the idea of freedom and the concept of space and how we need a space to move in. All right, guys, just, this is part 3 is going to come. Hello? All right, guys, I don't know what's happening. This is. Okay, I'll continue with the episode. And if anybody's listening, you can, I don't know, come on Discord, and when there's people, I'll pause the talk and attend to the Discord. But anyways, until then, I'm kind of like waiting. And the viewers are like, Mr. Within, we don't need these boring explanations, I guess this is what I'll say. That attention is navigating a plane of existence. This is similar to flight. Now, I'm not a pilot, maybe in the future I'll go get my pilot's license, that would be awesome. Or maybe I'll become close friends with a pilot or something. But in the inner realms, as a human being on this planet, I have experienced numerous flights of my attention. And so what I realized, if I was to tell you the most incredible thing that was kind of like a shift, like a profound, a realization, insight for me, was that when I was younger, I was so convinced that I was a biological entity and just my name and my personality, just those 3 things, that I had never actually looked at what was going on, right? And I had never closed my eyes to look at that pitch black abyss and to see what sort of content my mind reveals in front of me. You see, I'm someone who I would say in certain situations I'm very impatient, but then when it comes to questions that have a depth to them and the magnitude, the more the size of something is bigger, the more patience it requires. Like the moment I decided to give these 10,000 talks, I was like, first of all, I don't know if it's even possible, but I feel it is, right? The second thing, I was like, okay, it's so many, right? And I don't want to just it's like every talk, it's as if like a moment of my life. It has to, in my own attention, it's like my own expression has to be the highest quality of my experience, or what's the point of it, Alright guys, whatever. I'll just focus on the talk. Let's bring some music. Or as, hipsters may one day say in the future, it's like, it's like the music is, it's like music, bro. It's like the music is sick, but they become one word, culturally. Anyways, guys, I'm trying to find the song. It's funny. Right now, I'm trying to find the song, and I'm seeing my own live stream on my phone. It's like in the middle of my own live stream, I'm going to tune into my own live stream. I think that's the most metaphysical thing I can do. But anyways, let's see. I like the idea and really just how the word flight is written, because it has the idea of light in it. It's as if somebody was like, light, like they they pulled their curtains. Imagine the Wright brothers, before they, created the airplane, they just pulled their, pulled the curtain, and the sunbeams just hit their eyes, and it like blinded them for a moment, had that blinding effect for a moment. And the Wright brothers were like, F-light, man, F-light. And then somebody, it's like the other Wright brother was like, wait a minute, man, there's something here. Flight, F-light, flight. I'm being, guys, silly, but really, what I'm trying to say is mankind was not satisfied with journeying on land. We journeyed in the sky. In my science fiction, I got a vision one day that, children in the future, right now, children get on buses and they go to school, like the magic school bus. So we're still at that level, right? But in the future, I envisioned that there's going to be hovering buildings. There's not just going to be flying cars. There's going to be flying houses. There's going to be flying skyscrapers. And in some sense, the evolution of what was man's shelter, home, bunker, house would become his spaceship. The greatest homes are going to be spaceships. Why? Because if anything happens on the planet, we're like, all right, let's go somewhere else. So mankind, the greatest house technology is spaceship technology. People don't understand this. We are living in spaceships that can't fly yet. Think of it that way. And in my inner realms, I felt it was like, let's say, give it like 2,000, give it 700 years from now, potentially a parallel reality of Earth, where in some sense, children, instead of getting on the bus, every child has a jetpack, but this jetpack is not with fire, it's with sound waves or something, It's not like a jetpack that could burn your feet, like as you fly into the air. Like that's the worst kind of jetpack. It's like I'm experiencing flight, but at what cost? And so when it comes to flight in your inner realms, first you have to become aware of the space. The Wright brothers understood the space, then they understood the laws of the space. Then they built something that could counter those laws or use it. You see, mankind is very incredible at manipulation, but before it was called manipulation, it was called survival. And before it was called survival, it was called a vision's expression. You see, it's as if we think we come from genetical content, right? Because we think that we only have a biological, physical body. But if there's 0.0, whatever amount of zeros you want, 1% chance that there is something multidimensional going on here. And it's not just the dance of, creatures in one world. It is the dance of many worlds in the eyes of, a species. I have emotions that, lead to my own moral relativism. But there are moments where I like to put my own emotions. I just like to put my moment, on the designer's table. I don't know why, but this concept as a kid, just from a young age, this idea of having a table and having blueprints on it, that was like the most incredible feeling for me. that was in some sense, it's like seeing the secrets of the future in front of you. That's the value of a blueprint in which life force animates. And so, as Mr. Within has spoken, in some sense, there's a world in front of your eyes called the outer realms, and there's a world behind your eyes called the inner realms. So the cool thing about being a human being is that you can see something in the mirror, that you have a shape, that your ancestors lived so you could open your eyes today. Do you understand? There is nobody who is ugly or beautiful, because what our ancestors did to get us here, it was incredibly beautiful. Do you understand? The spirit of mankind it has a sort of flawless beauty, as if its mind fell from heaven, but its soul never exists without it. So whoever you are, eyes are noticing a world. You are the divinity in the empty room. So their thoughts, their creativity is blocked. I'm laughing now. I have literally woken up every day and I'm like, life force, what are you doing here? What am I doing here? And it's like there's even moments in my life where think of the incredible mind of a bird, a creature that is telling you that science fiction thing. I was telling you how like children would go on school buses to go to school in the future, 700 years from now, imagine. Children are just going to be at home and the school is going to be hovering above neighborhoods and children with jetpacks are just going to fly into that school. I saw a vision of this, literally as if I'm on the ground and seeing the school pass by. Another strange vision I've seen of the future, I've written about it in my science fiction, was this vision that I saw these giant rectangular boxes in the sky, right? And like these rectangular containers. And in my inner realm vision, I was wondering in some sense, what is that? Why should there be a giant rectangular thing? And it was as if there was an instant activation of the next event associated to the first event. And I saw that inside that rectangular flying object themselves failing in biological life and have gone into these nutrition pods. So imagine all the addicts in the world, all the drug addicts in the world, right? They in the nutrition pod, and my psychology is going to live in a live stream cyberspace version of the earth that's actually happening. Master it as an ego, as a subject, that doesn't make sense. The subject acts like it can touch the object, but it never can, because it's part of the coin. When I say when your heart found you at the depths of the lost mind, what a lost mind means is an intelligence that doesn't understand where it is. Not that it can't understand where it is, but at the moment it doesn't understand where it is. And sometimes you have to appreciate how much of a fool you are to discover your own genius. That means most people hate their own foolishness. I was like, yo, why is it happening though? And it was like geometry, it was structure, it was art. I've had an ability as a kid, anytime I've gotten emotional, I've just rendered everything geometrical and there was nothing emotional. That means imagine somebody is rude to you and you're like, yo, that's the periodic table being rude to me. Or yo, that's just in some sense some sort of self-simulation of that dude's brain that's being rude to me. You see? The flights of the free means that you have to, as a being, make a decision. Really, seriously, you have to make a decision of what type of being you want to be here. And at first, if you're a spiritual person, you're like, yo, man, God's going to reveal it to me. I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to sit, in the forest and, it's like the birds are going to let me know when I'm enlightened. And really, it's not like that. Enlightenment is the responsibility of the whole moment. Do you understand? In Tibetan Buddhism, there's a beautiful distinction between the archetype of the Buddha, which means the awakened one, the awakened individual, the enlightened individual, and the idea of the Bodhisattva, which is in some sense the returning collective. You see, bodhisattvas were not beings that were coming from the lower. Imagine, like in Vedic mythology, there's this incredible idea that Earth is the bottom of this mountain, and there's these 7 upper worlds. There's also 7 lower worlds, but those are like, for the unconsciously looped. you know. But for the higher, in some sense, in Vedic mythology, so they're pretty much saying that it's like the bottom of a mountain, Mount Meru is the earth dimension, and as you go up to the summit, you reach the highest level, the seventh heaven, which is known as Brahma Loka, and Brahma Loka is, you can interpret it as God's home, okay, where God is chilling. Right. This is of course, this is through Vedic, the context of Vedic mythology. Do you know, human beings means like emotions are important, but it's also important when they come into the picture. You know, in the future I'll speak about how we are not our emotions, but it is important to right now realize that actually we are it. You know. And when I say in the future, there's going to come a time where there's going to arise a group of human beings on this planet, and they're going to be either bored or tired of being human. I know, you know. It's like, I don't want to say welcome to the club, but I'll say but I'll say this. It's all about where you see the magnificent. That means some are fascinated by the infinity of the void, like it doesn't end, the empty space. Do you see? And then there are some people who are fascinated by the infinity of all these planets and galaxies and stars and celestial objects, and in some sense, you know, geometrical structures in the space-time continuum, all of them changing, evolving. Do you understand? It's as if our culture makes us think we are so small that we have the problems of a human being. We should have the problems of a universal being. We should have, in some sense, the advanced humanity should already be here. And in our realms, it is really. Because I asked the Logos poetically one night, I was like, in some sense, okay, so what does that mean about an advanced civilization? And the Logos was like, can't you see? It has to be advanced from the beginning. That means the only way an advanced civilization is built is by advanced beings. There is no other. There's no other way. In some sense, could be beyond a humanized experience. What I'm trying to tell you is that what we are is so sophisticated that we are actually in numerous Iron Man suits by the nature of where our attention goes. I am a person who I have closed my eyes and I have tried to live in my mind. I'm not kidding. There was a time where I had to like kill 2 hours waiting. You know, I had to just wait for 2 hours. And in those 2 hours that I was waiting, I closed my eyes and I was like, let me try to live in that world. And do you know how difficult it was? It was so difficult for me to keep the world there. So imagine you're like, you know, I don't know, let's say you're at a bank or something and you're in line and you've just closed your eyes for a moment, and in that moment you've closed your eyes, you're trying to create a world from scratch. This is really what it means to be a writer, by the way. Many people think about, it's like, what's my style in writing? It's just the context, you see. It is just how far you have actually looked at this world. You know, children become fascinated by what's in front of their eyes, not realizing their true power comes from what is behind their eyes. What this means is the greatest strategy for 8 billion creatures in the void is to immediately be capable, all human beings. I don't care if you think you are ill or you're not ill, if you believe in mental illness or not, or even if there is, if you are, whatever. I'm saying you're a human being. I don't care. There's 8 billion of us. I can't go and say, yo, this one's good, that one's bad. You know, it's just, this is the strategy. We have reached that point where in some sense it's like, you know, the lion roars on the hill and the other lions roar back. This is the situation we're living in. And so my fascination, you know, it's like I was so lucky I was a fool when I was young. Do you understand? Because I managed, it's like the sooner your foolishness becomes obvious to you, or you become conscious of your foolishness. And just because you become conscious of your foolishness in one dimension doesn't mean you've become conscious of your foolishness. You know, it's like the person's like, yo, wait a minute, do I have a universal self? You know? And the person's like, wait a minute, is that universal self foolish? You know, and then it's like that person, the moment where it's as if the difference between the fool Let me tell you something. There's this strange sentence. I remember just finding it, like researching these mystical quotes, okay? And in one of them, there was this bizarre, it just caught my attention immediately, as if I saw an exotic animal in the forest. Do you know? There is a moment in every moment that our attention is being the whole moment. That the moment can't do any, try to do the robot, right? Try to move my body physically, but every time I move my body, it seems to be like there's this sphere of awareness that is capturing as much of the angles of it as it can. You know, like I can't see behind me, but I have an incredible sensitivity to, in some sense, notice, in some sense, I don't know how to tell you. Sometimes I see things that I just have to silently walk past. Even about people. I see silently things, and sometimes I can't control myself and I just like burst, There's something that I'll tell you. I have a twin brother, and when I, in 2014 when I gave these Mr. Within talks, I would say I was still, there were certain aspects of my own nature that were still incomplete to myself. Any time, any moment, start speaking in verse. And I remember I got into an argument with my twin brother, and then I suddenly said things in such a poetic intensity, but I said it in such a cruel manner, where at the end of it, I just apologized, and I felt like, oh my God, when they say language is sharp, it's true. It was about to full setting, right? But your own shield blocks, your left hand blocks, the shield on your left hand blocks the strike from the sword in your right hand. You see what I'm saying? That is the power of the nature of the quality of how we are being. It has nothing to do even with your conditioning. They say nature versus nurture. Nurture is the tip of the iceberg. Nature has such an hidden depth to it that there may even come a moment in this life where you might be like, yo, how have I been, like, with what naiveness have I been thinking I'm an individual? Like, what convinced me I'm an individual here when the whole thing is happening here? Do you see the intensity of this world we're in? Its presence is the same as us, but our personality separates us from how it's all collectively held. We are, in some sense, literally like stars, but subjectively. Just like there's stars that twinkle in the sky, right? There's egos that in some sense, shout, in culture. And so, I don't know, I've had two strange dreams of flight. In one dream, it was so weird. I slowly kind of like, as if like with like low gravity, I slowly hovered from one building to another. And in another dream when I was young, I remember I was in this like invisible little car, and the invisible little car was doing like rotations in like this, I think it was like some living room or somewhere in my dream. Do you know? So I have in my inner realms, like, they say most people, they forget see something so beautiful, so magnificent, so beyond. I'll tell you, once I saw such an incredible dream that inspired, called The Great Work Online, right? And I don't know, I was like in a spiritual phase, and I just trusted my intuition to just just whatever that it was literally like as if I felt like I had like automatically written something, and I didn't want to like touch it, so I just like published the whole thing like an artwork. Like that book is more like some strange artwork than a book, really. But the celestial in the sky, if you can, I saw those stars moving in a straight line in the sky, and in the dream I noticed they were spacecraft, and I just teared up. That means spaceships in the future, when they move in our skies, they're going to look like small stars just moving in lines. It's going to be so beautiful. The celestial walk is going to be beautiful. And feel free, guys treat the comment section like a wall, just like how the earliest human artist pretty much just put its hand on a wall and threw pigment on it. Whoever writes whatever on the chat section, it's gonna pass the test of time. Do you understand? So this talk is kind of like, it's like a airplane, and it's like the people in the comment section are like the passengers. But anyways, let me see where else I can go. So this notion that the heart can find, that which is lost in the mind. If right now somebody says, Mr. Within, you seem to have experienced like certain things about reality in regards to body, mind, soul, and the traditional trio. So what do they all mean to you now? And I would tell you simply, my body is kind of like what nature is doing, believe it or not. And when I trust it, it just goes forth. It's like an event. It's like an existential event, biological systematic event. Very repetition. Because of how our body is required to survive, human experience is looping like crazy. Every day we have to do the same things to survive. We have to eat food, and all that stuff, right? So what I'm saying is like the human being is looping itself to continue surviving, but its consciousness is maturing to a level where it's getting bored of repetition. This is what Charles Bukowski said on his last Earthbound interview, where the interviewer pretty much asked, Charles Bukowski's a legendary writer, guys, and the interviewer asked Charles Bukowski, it's like, yo, as you're getting older now, how do you see death? Like, how do you feel about it? And Charles Bukowski gave an answer, and at the time, I remember I was watching the video on YouTube, I was like, yo, whoa, what did I just hear? And Charles Bukowski said that it's like, I don't fear death because, like, when you get old, you begin to see things are cycling. Do you understand? We are actually not even like we are growing like a spiral, not like a straight line or a bell curve. It's like that bell curve is simultaneously some sort of expanding spiral. The inner realms endlessly expand. What that means is the body is like a bell curve, let's say, okay, that's granted. But the mind is like an endless like spiral, just growing, getting bigger, and then last moment of life, you're like, okay, what does this mean? What was all this spiraling in the middle of nowhere in regards to the experience of truth or divinity or whatever? It's like, what was the meaning? And so for me, it's strange, it was like I went on a journey and I became the universe and I, became the imagination of God. And if we have souls, then in some sense, do you understand what I'm saying? It's as if it's as if, where did God make earth? Theologians, please comment below. Where did God make earth? It seems like there was only heavens. That was heaven was the space where earth is existing. And even from a secular standpoint, the earth is in the heavens. Do you see what I'm saying? Aristotle has this next level book. It's like some couple hour audio book called On the Heavens. I would encourage viewers to listen to it. There's so much, but all I will tell you is that you must have something in this life that you can absolutely trust, or you will not have that confidence of ability. You see, and if you are wise, this is something where it took me a while to discover, and I'm just like, yo, kids, young kids, remember, it's like don't fall in the same, puddles I did. What it is you have to ask yourself, as a temporary entity in the middle of an unknown event or world, right? What is the greatest thing you can do? What is the greatest thing you can see? What is the greatest thing you can look at? What is the greatest thing you can be? Do you see what I'm saying? I am saying just seek advancement. I call this the advancement principle. It can apply in every moment of life. In everything you can see something, and its advancement is like that thing becomes a dot, and its advancement is all the lines. Believe it or not, sometimes when I give these talks and the ideas I share, I feel like, on an Achilles level of spear throwing, where it's as if I've noticed an idea, I've noticed the context, and I'm throwing conceptual spears at an infinite sky. And so really we must wonder about our wings, and we must wonder about the ability of the flight of man, And whoever you are, just give yourself homework. And one day, just wake up early in the morning, grab a piece of paper and a pen, press pause on everything in the world, and just look at that empty piece of paper, and in some sense try to answer the most fascinating questions. The greatest advice I got from a writer was that in some sense, if you can write something that will fascinate you, if you can write something that can surprise you, it will most likely surprise and fascinate your audience. So this means that the greatest creative minds are not creative people. They're not freaking artists. They're explorers. Its consciousness is exploring its ability in its realm. And it is leading to some sort of objective activity, and that visible objective ability is simulating a subjective self. But everything knows that it's so many ways to look at things, really. Infinity is that it's as if there is an inconceivable horse rider. Do you know what I'm saying? There's an inconceivable rider. Imagine a general alone. There's individual value, and then when there's a collective vision, a collective value emerges. What the human beings of 2023 are missing out on, where the future generation change their mind to a way more advanced context and world story and idea of humanity. Do you understand? It would be as if we're trying to find union points. And so flight in the outer realms, sure, build like a jetpack. Flight in the inner realms, it's your questions, it's the fascination. Answers close worlds, questions open them. Questions open minds. Do you know? Some people are like, yo, I'm gonna use some sort. Just ask a question. Wonder about its meaning. How do you cultivate ability? Everybody who has talent cared to walk in a world that nobody else was there and they were alone in. And that's where the ability and the confidence and the experience is really, I realized this early on, right? This is why that means when a person's like, why does language exist? So our eyes see further. And the unknown viewer within is wondering, it's like, can it in some sense have a soul without a world in front of its eyes? Do you understand? It's like what is going on here? This is flying through them all. The future will realize